Hi there, I'm William Juma. This is episode 37 of the tutorial series Livewire 3 from scratch. In this episode, I would like us to learn how to use a WYSIWYG editor in our Livewire application. In this case, we are going to use Trix. A text editor is used to format the text, for example, in a blog application. In the previous episode, we learned about Laravel Folio, and we also learned in the other episode about Volt. Today, I want us to use both of them to be able to assist me in this episode. I want us to go ahead and create a Volt component. And what we are going to do, we are going to run the command php artisan make. And in this case, I want us to create a component using Folio. So I'll write make Folio, and then the name of our component, and I'm going to call it post. I will hit enter to create the component, and of course, as we had it in our previous episode, it's being created inside this folder that we created, which is called pages. If you are following this tutorial series and you did not watch the previous series, you can be able to just check the previous two episodes to get some perspective. But obviously, you need to install Livewire, you need to install Folio, and you need to install Volt. And also, you need to create a layout file for you to be able to render this component as a full page component. So let me open post.blade and we see what we have inside here. As opposed to when we create a Volt file, this one only has the div and nothing else. So inside here, I want us to add the PHP tag, where we will have our PHP code. Then I will close the tag like that. And then we also need to import to use the Volt API. So I'm going to pass in use function Livewire, and then Volt. And then I want to import some parameters here, and in our previous episode we used state, and that is exactly what I want us to do in this episode. So I want to have two properties. So the first one is title. In a blog you will have title, and probably the other property that you will have is a property called content or body or something of that sort. So let me call it content, like that. So we have declared two properties. I want us now to go to our blade file, but before we go to the blade file, I want us to go to the Trix website and be able to copy the CDN link for Trix. We will open Chrome, and what I'm going to do here is just to search Trix editor. This first link that we get is a page for Trix, and I want us to just view it on GitHub because that is where we have the documentation, but actually you can see how the editor looks like. So I will click view on GitHub, and then once we scroll downwards, of course, there are so many things that you can be able to come here and have a look. But what I want to do is to just copy the links. So in this case, we are copying the CSS, and we are also copying the JavaScript links or the JavaScript tags. And this one I want us to attach in our layout file because we will be extending the layout file. So I'm going to components, layouts, app.blade, and on top of whatever it is that we have here, which is the bootstrap, let me just extend this such that it's a little bit more visible. So on top of the script for bootstrap, I want us to add a little bit more, but let me add them to the header section. I think that is the best place where you can be able to put them. So I will put the two of them there. So we have the CSS link, CDN link, and then the JavaScript CDN link for Trix. How you save that, and go back to our component and then continue with every other thing that I would like to do there. So I open post.play.php, and inside here, because we are using it as an anonymous component, that is what that means. We are using it in Folio. We also need to import the layout. So in this case, we can say x layouts dot app, like that. So we can just wrap it in that. And then of course, even here, we can be able to do the same. I also want us to have the @volt directive. So we will have @volt and then @endVolt. If you do not like this sort of presentation, you can still follow this episode using the Volt component inside the Livewire page, the way we created in episode 35, or you can be able to just work it out in a normal Livewire component. So you will not have issues if you choose whichever way to do. But these ones, you will now declare them as properties in the way we have talked about previously. So now, inside here, I want us to have a form. So we are going to have form, and then we will close the form tag, and then I want this form to have a submit method. So wire submit, wire :submit, and then our method that you're submitting to, I want to call it save. And then inside this form is where we are going to have two inputs. One of the inputs is going to be sort of a normal one. So in this case, I want us to have a div with a class of MB3. Just to style it a bit, I will close that div. And then inside here, I want us to have an input. So input type is text, because it's just a title. And then we can have wire model. And then for the wire model, what we are going to have is title, because we have already set the property. The class, we can have it as form control, form-control, like that. I believe that is it. I also want us to have a label for this input. So label, and it has a class of form, form label, like that. And then we have the name of the label. So in this case, we can call it title. After that, I'm going to just copy everything that we have here and have the next input. In this case, now we are going to call it a different thing. So let me paste this one here. And now here, the title should be content. And then while we are getting the content, we will not be putting the wire model here. So I'm not going to have wire model content, because we are going to display whatever it is that we have here using the Trix editor. So what I'm going to do, in fact, even the type, we are going to change to hidden. So in other words, we do not want this input to be visible, but we want the details that are supposed to be in this input to be displayed in our Trix editor. So also another thing that we need to do, we need to give it an ID. So I'm going to just type here an ID. So I just call it ID 22. Of course, the reason why I'm putting it somehow uniquely is because if you have any other editor or input that you're using the Trix editor within the same component, then you will have a conflict of your inputs. So these IDs have to be unique. So in other words, you may even consider setting it above here. But for now, we are going to just leave it like that. The other thing that we need to have, because it is hidden, we don't even need the class of form control. We don't need it. What the next thing we need is to give it a name. You are going to call it content. And then I also want us to give it a value. And the value, I want us to set it to the value of the content that we got from our component, in this case this functional API, this content that we have here. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to just pass in the content like that. And now after doing that, we need to also import now the Trix editor. So what I'm going to do is just to say Trix hyphen editor. So that is the tag we are going to use, and I'm going to close it in a similar fashion. And then we are going to reference this ID. So what I'm going to put here is input, and we are going to say ID 22 like that. We can also be able to give it a class. So class, and what I'm going to have here is Trix content hyphen content. So that is the class that you're going to give. And now for us to be able to pass the data that is typed in inside our Trix editor to this value here, or for us to set it to this value here, we are going to use JavaScript to do that. So I want us to be able to have some JavaScript script tags here. We are going to have the script tags. I'm going to close them like that. And then inside here, we can be able to have a constant, and I want to name it Trix editor. You can name it whatever it is that you want, like that. So the name doesn't really have an issue. And then we are going to get this element here, the one that we have an ID of 22. So in this case, we can say document dot get element by ID like that. And then we are going to pass the ID that we have here. So in this case, what am I going to pass? An ID of 22 like that. After that, then we can go ahead and add an event listener. So in this case, we can just pass add event listener like that. And then of course the event listener is we are going to pass Trix hyphen blah, and what this one does, it's one of whatever it is that we can be able to pass according to what we have here. If we scroll downwards, there are several things that we can be able to pass in our editor. So for this blah is similar to whatever it is that we have in Livewire, whereby if you blah your input, then whatever it is that you have, after somebody has clicked elsewhere, then that will be sent to the backend. So in this case, it will be set to whatever it is that we have in our API value above. So you can see we have Trix change, we have Trix initialize, we have Trix focus, we have Trix blah. So that is what I am passing here. And then of course we can pass our event, and since we will not be using it, is it even necessary? I think it's not very necessary, but we can have it like that. And then after that, now we can pass. If you want to set a property, you want to give, and this one we have not talked about anywhere. If you want to give a value to a property, inside maybe your Livewire class, you can be able to do it directly from JavaScript. And what we will be able to do, we can say this dot set, just like that. And then we will say which property are we targeting. So we are targeting content, the content property. And then using JavaScript, we can be able to set it. So in this case, we will use this. We will say Trix editor dot get attribute. So you get the value attribute like that. And then of course the attribute that you are getting from this ID is the attribute that we are calling value. So that is what we are going to get. So here I'm going to pass value. And just like that, we are able to listen to and be able to pass this value to our component. Now, because we had a method called save, I want us to handle that the saving of this post, even though I will not handle it conclusively. I will just handle it up to somewhere because we do not have actually a table that is called posts, not unless I'm mistaken. So we are going to have function, and then inside here we are going to, maybe what I want to do is dd, and what I want us to check if it has a value when we type in is what we have as content. So I can say we can refer to it in a similar way in which we refer to when we are working with the Livewire classes and the blade component, like that. So I can say this content like that. You can close that. So that is what we want to dd. I want to see if once we are able to visit the URL, we can be able to have that. Now, just to explain something or clarify something, we have our file and it is inside pages. So we do not need to create a route called post. We can just reference post. If there is no other route that is called by that name, we will be fine. So what I'm going to do is just go to post singular, and then let us wait and see if it is going to load our post. We are having an error. It is saying an unexpected identifier state. Let me check. In fact, the problem is just here because we needed to close this with a semicolon. So let me do that. And now we can save. Let us see if everything is okay. And now we are able to load our Trix editor. The only thing that I've forgotten to do is to have a button for submitting. So that is the only thing that I need to have. I will put it somewhere before we close the form tag. So I'm going to have button, and I'm going to have it having a type of submit, and then we can give it a class of btn primary, like that, and then we can close it and have it like that, and then maybe we can call it, we can have there submit, the name of the button, what it should display to the user. And so basically that is what we have. So if I don't type in something and submit, you can see we are having the quotation marks. So in this case is nothing. If I type in something here and submit, now you can see inside the div we are having some content that we have typed. So basically you can go ahead and save. But before we save, let me just attempt also and do something about validation, just to intensify the concepts that we talked about in previous episodes. So again, we can be able to do our validation here. We can say validated. This one is just a variable to store whatever it is that you're validating. We can have this validate hyphen validate. And remember, there are many ways in which you can be able to validate. I'm just choosing one randomly. And then of course, inside here we can have a property called title. And and we can set title to required. I want us to do even more, because the title we may want it to be having a little bit more characters, so we can say minimum 10 characters. And then of course also for our content we have another property called content, and this one we can say it's required, so one cannot be able to hit this method successfully and submit without giving us content. And I want us to have a minimum of how many characters? Maybe let me say 30 to be easy for myself, but you can decide to set values that can be able to just give the end user some effort to do the typing, because in this case they are doing a post. You do not want them to just do a one sentence post and submit, so that will not be proper. So once we refresh, I want us to click. Have I handled validation? No, I don't think so. Yes, let me handle validation. So here we can have at error, and then we can have title, so the errors belonging to title, at end error, like that. And then on top of that, now we can have a span here, the things that we have done severally with a class of text danger, and then we close it like that. And inside here we can be able to pass a message like that. I'm going to save, and I'm going to copy this also for the content. So I'm going to copy, and after the Trix editor below here, so I'm going to have our error messages displayed, and then here we have the value as the property as content. So if I'm to refresh and attempt to submit, again now you see it's saying the content field is required and the title field is required. If I type something in the title, maybe some short text and some short text also for the content, and I attempt to submit, now it says the title must at least be 10 characters, the content field must at least be 30 characters. So let me type a little bit more on the title and a little bit more on the content. I'm just typing gibberish and try to submit. And I think as this one reached 10 characters and 30 characters, I don't know. Let me attempt again. Of course, it seems it's submitting. Yes, you can see the errors have cleared, so meaning everything is okay. And now for us to be able to save, I'm not going to save, but what I'm going to do is just say post create, and then inside here we will pass validated. And then of course you have to remember to ensure that you have imported post here. So maybe you can say use app models post, like that, if it exists. But since it's non-existent in this example, I'm just going to comment them out again. Then of course after that you can be able to return a session message, and since it's something that we have done continually and repeatedly, I don't think it's a must for me to go ahead and do that. You can be able to check the previous videos and be acquainted with that. Thank you very much for following this tutorial up until this point. Subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell if you like the video,